Good morning, girls. In the previous session, we learned what is servlet and the life cycle of servlet, right? Here today we are going to learn how to create a servlet application using the Tomcat server. For that, basically we need the Tomcat server installed on our machine, as well as you can use JCreator for developing your application. Yes, Tomcat server is mandatory, but as an editor you can choose anything, like you can even go with a notepad also. Here, first of all, before starting how to create a servlet application, let me show you the version of Tomcat Apache server installed on my machine. For that, you open my computer, go to C drive, program files. Inside it you can find Apache Software Foundation. This is open source. You can get the Tomcat from internet also. So here I have already installed the Apache Software Foundation from the internet. Double click on this folder, you will get Tomcat 5.5. Even you can take the higher version of Tomcat for executing your servlets. Here I have a Tomcat 5.5 with me. Double click on this folder. Here you can see the list of some more folders available in Tomcat 5.5, right? So whenever you install Apache software, this will automatically install on your machine. This structure is same as the structure of PHP. If you have installed a XAMPP in your machine, then you are very well aware of these things, that it also create a automatic directory structure in your machine. Same here, by installing Apache software will get the structure automatically, right? So close it. Now let us switch back to servlet document. Here the steps of how to create a servlet applications are given. Let us see. To create a servlet application, you need to follow the below mentioned step. These steps are very common for all the web servers. In our example, we are using Apache Tomcat, as I show you, right? Apache Tomcat is an open source web server for testing servlets and JSP technology. Download the latest version of Tomcat server and install it in your machine. This is our initial step and mandatory step for testing of servlet and JSP technology. We need any of the server which supports the servlets, Java servlets, right? One of the server is Apache Tomcat, which is open source and it is freely available on websites. After installing the Tomcat server on your machines, follow the given steps. The number one is to create a directory structure for your application. First of all, what you have to do is to create a directory structure for your application. The second step is to create a servlet inside the given folder. Number three is to compile that servlet. Fourth step is to create a deployment descriptor file for your application, and in the fifth step we'll start the server and deploy the application. So these are the 5 steps which are mandatory for developing our servlet application. The first step, which is most important, is the Tomcat server required for the execution of all these things, right? All these 5 steps are explained in detail. Let us create our first servlet application. For that we need to create a directory structure, as I told you that The Sun microsystem defines a unique directory structure that must be followed to create a servlet application, right? Here the first is a name given to our application. First of all, we will create a one folder with name first, which we want to apply as a name to my application. Inside it, I will create a one more folder with name webinf. Webinf. Here I am preparing just the directory structure, so don't bother about these things, these files, right? Inside the first, I will create one more folder with name webinf. Inside the webinf, I'll create one more folder with name classes. Now, where to create this structure, right? This is a big question. Where to create this structure? Here, create the above directory structure inside Apache Tomcat web apps directory. So let us see practically as well. Open your computer, go to C drive, program files. As I told you that in the first step, what you have to do is to install Apache Software Foundation. Double click on this folder. Inside it you will find the folder with name Tomcat, right? Here you will get a folder with name web apps. So this is the root where we have to create our whole directory structure as I have shown in this document, right? Inside it, first of all, what you have to do is to create a new folder with name first. Okay, this is done. Now open this folder and create one subfolder with name webinf. Okay, inside it I will create a webinf. You can see this structure webinf, right? Now double click on this folder and again create one subfolder inside webinf with name classes. New folder, will create new folder with the name classes. Done. So this is our directory structure. Directory structure is ready. Now close this structure. All the servlet classes we will keep inside the classes folder of this directory structure, right? Here the web.xml, which is our deployment descriptor, will keep this file under webinf folder. As you can see here, this is our webinf folder and we will keep web.xml file, which is also known as deployment descriptor file. We will keep this file inside the webinf. The subfolder of webinf is classes and we will put all the servlet classes inside this folder, right? Creating a servlet. Here the first step is over. To create a directory structure, step number 2 is to create a servlet. There are 3 different ways to create a servlet: by implementing servlet interface, by extending generic servlet class, or the third way is by extending HTTP servlet class. We generally go with the third method, HTTP servlet class, right? Any of the way you can select, but generally we prefer to go with the third method, that is by extending HTTP servlet class. Mostly a servlet is created by this abstract class. As discussed, HTTP servlet gives the definition of service method of the servlet interface. It is extended from the servlet interface. So we will get all the basic method of servlet interface over here. Okay, the servlet class that we will create should not override service method. Our servlet class will override only doGet and doPost methods. When a request comes in for the servlet, the web container calls the servlet's service method, and depending on the type of request, the service method calls either doGet or doPost method. By default, if the method is not mentioned, then by default a request is getRequest. Keep in mind that if the request type is not mentioned, doGet or doPost, then by default a request is of type get. Here you can see the example of one servlet. Don't panic about it. We'll create one more time when we go with the NetBeans editor. We'll create it once again, right? Here just you get an idea of how to create a servlet. Import javax.servlet. This package is required. The second package we need is import javax.servlet.http, right? Then java.io.star. This package is also required. So we have imported these three packages at the beginning of our servlet. As I told you, generally we use HTTP servlet, right? So here it is, public my servlet extends HTTP servlets. Public my servlet is a name given by us, given by programmer, which extends HTTP servlet, the inbuilt class. As I explained in the previous session, that servlet don't have a main method. Instead of that, it uses doGet method or doPost method to call the service method, right? And it has always two parameters. First one is type of request and second is type of response. So here you can see the two objects also, right? The request object, this is an object of HTTP servlet request class, and response object is defined for HTTP servlet response class, which can throw a servlet exception. Here what I want to do, I want to send a response back to the client machine in the form of HTML, right? So we will set the content type of type text HTML. For that I will write response dot set content type text / HTML. Then I want to write something in the browser. For that I will take an object of print writer class with name out. Here I have defined one object with name out of print writer class, right? And we will call the method getWriter, response dot getWriter. Now whatever you want to write in client machine, you can take the help of object of print writer class. Out.println HTML body, you can define the HTML tags over here, and you can make this content dynamic by embedding the code of servlet here, right? Out.println hello readers, and out.println body over and HTML tag over. For the sake of simplicity, we are not generating any dynamic code over here, but we will send the response back to the client machine, right? So this is the code We will write this code in the notepad file and we will save this file with the name myservlet.java. Whatever the name you are using for this class, the servlet, with the same name you have to save your file by giving the extension .java, right? MyServlet is a name given to this servlet, and see here I have saved this file with the same name MyServlet followed by the extension Java. Store this file anywhere in your PC. Then compile it. How to compile it? How to compile this file? It is a Java file. All of you are very well aware of how to compile a Java file, right? Now paste the class file. After compilation you will get the class file, right? Using javac command you can compile this file, and after compilation you will get a class file of this file. Put that class file into webinf classes directory. The generated class file we will put into webinf classes directory that we have to create inside Tomcat web apps directory, right? Directory in the sense here we are using this term in the instead of folders. Now in the next step, compilation of servlet. On the screen you can see the compilation of servlet is shown. To compile a servlet, a jar file is required. If you compile your servlet, you need a jar file, right? The full form of jar is Java archive readable file, Java archive file, which is required to execute your servlet. Different servers require different jar files. For Apache Tomcat server, servlet-api.jar file is required. Servlet-api.jar file. This file is mandatory for the compilation of your servlet. Now how to compile the servlet, right? Before that, from where we can get this servlet API jar file? It is available on internet, or you can get the copy of this file from me also, right? Let me show you where to put this file. For that you have to access your Java folder, which is again already installed in my machine. To compile a servlet, a jar file is required. As I told you that you can download the servlet API jar file from internet, and you can paste the servlet API jar file inside Java, JDK, JRE, lib, and inside the extension directory. The second way to get servlet API jar file from the following folder: C, program files, Apache Software Foundation, Tomcat, Common, and library. And as I told you that you can get it from me also. Let me show you this path from where you can get servlet API jar file. For that, open this path, go to C drive. Inside C drive, go to program files, Apache software we will select, right? Then we will go to Tomcat, then inside it common and lib. Here you can find the servlet API file, right? This is available with the Tomcat Tomcat server. You can copy this file from here, and even you can get it from the internet also, as I told you that, right? Now where to paste this jar file? We must paste this file inside this folder, Java JDK Java JDK JRE lib and extension. Here we will paste the copied file, which is copied from the folder inside the Tomcat, right? Here you can see this file, Servlet API. I have already pasted over here. Servlet API is now available in Java folder, extension folder, right? Now close it. So this is the way you can get the servlet.api jar file for the execution of your servlet. Now steps to compile a servlet. For that you have to set the class path. Again, this step is you are familiar with these steps also. Set path C : program files Java JDK 1.7.0/bin. This is the path to your JDK directory where we have installed our Java file. That path we have to set from here, or even you can go with the advanced variables also. Now the next step is how to compile the servlet class. For that we will write java c myservlet.java. As I told you that, save your file with the Java extension and compile your servlet class. So java c command we will use for compilation of servlet file, right? After compiling your servlet class, you will have to paste the class file into webinf and classes directory. Now how to create a deployment descriptor file? Deployment descriptor DD is an XML document that is used by web container to run servlets and JSP pages. Deployment descriptors is used for several important purposes, such as number 1, mapping URL to servlet class. આપણે URL અને servlet નું mapping કરી શકીએ, right? Which URL is used for the servlet, that we can map through the deployment descriptor. Then in the second step, you can initialize the parameter through deployment descriptor. We'll discuss this thing later. Then you can define even error page using deployment descriptor. Then you can apply the security roles as well, and you can even declare the tag libraries for your servlet through the deployment descriptor. We'll discuss about all this in details later. Now we will see how to create a simple web XML file for our web application. This step is mandatory. You must create a web XML for running your servlet class, right? Here you can see the coding of web XML file. The first line of any XML document is shown here. Then root tag of web XML file, all other tag come inside it. Web app is our root tag, right? Root tag of web XML file is web-app. Then servlet tag, this tag maps internal name to fully qualified class name. Give an internal name to your servlet. You can define it yourself, right? Then you can provide the servlet class name between this tag, servlet dash class, servlet class that you have created, right? Then next tag is servlet mapping. This tag maps internal name to public URL name. As I told you that we must map the internal name of servlet with URL. That we can do with the help of servlet mapping tab. Okay, servlet name hello and the URL pattern is /hello. URL name, this is what the user will see to get to the servlet, which we will type in the URL of our browser, right? The main tag web app is over here. So this is our web XML file. See, it is difficult to type this code manually. That's why we always choose any type of editor to define a web XML file, where we get the ready-made code. What we have to do is just enter these names, otherwise you will get everything ready through the editor, right? Or else what you have to do is to type this everything manually in a notepad. Now, how to start the server? Double click on the startup.bat file to start our Apache Tomcat server, or we can execute the given command over here in our Windows machine using command prompt, right? First of all, what we have to do is to start the server. For that, we must click on the startup.bat file to start our Apache Tomcat server. Starting the Tomcat server for the first time, again it need a special steps. If you are starting the server for the first time, you have to set Java home in the environment variable. The following steps will show you how to set it. Right click on my computer, go to properties, go to advanced tab and click on the environment variable buttons. Click on new button and enter Java home inside the variable name. Text field and path of JDK inside. Variable value text field. Click OK to save it. Right? It looks like this. Again, we are aware of these things. We have already set the path for our Java program execution. Right? Now, how to run the servlet application? This is the last step. Open your browser and type http localhost : then port ID. Port ID depends on your own PC, right? Then we will type the name of the folder which we have placed in the web apps of Tomcat folder, right? તમને યાદ હશે આપણે ફર્સ્ટ નેમથી ક્રિએટ કર્યું હતું. ઇનસાઇડ ઇટ give your URL pattern which we have declared in deployment descriptor file. Okay, http localhost 8080. This is a port ID. It depends on your system. Then the name of your folder. Here we have given a name to our folder first, and the URL pattern for our program is hello. So this we will type in our browser address bar, right? And then press enter. You will get a result on the screen. Here, hello readers, we have just done. We have just created the servlet for printing a hello reader, nothing else, for the sake of simplicity, right? Here we have just printed the hello readers on the screen. As a response to the client, we will get the string back. Okay, So here you can see the output. Now in the next session we will create one application. We'll create one application through NetBeans IDE, right, using different ways: HTTP, Servlet's request, right, Servlet interface through we will create. Okay, now for today's session this is enough. In the next session we will discuss more about servlets. Thank you.